welcome to the This Is Metal Show. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and my co-host, of course, is Tom Collier, the principal songwriter, the guitar player, and from Held Hostage, a great New York-based hard rock band. He's also, if you can believe this, Kyle, the president of Fire Rock Music, who sponsors our little show. And we got Lethal X, the owner of Chaotic Risk TV. So that's who we are. And our guest today, our super guest, is Kyle Pfeiffer from the band Blacklite District. Now, I got to ask, I've always loved the name. How did you guys come up with that? Because I know that's one of the hardest things to do is come up with the band name.
I mean, it was pretty much me and my teenage friends when we were, growing up and trying to find out a band name, sitting around in the basement with notepads and coming up with ideas. And occasionally you'd get a serious one or two, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I guess it was as simple as just, I thought of at the time, the red light district was kind of like a risque place to talk about. Okay. My friend was just like, what about black light and make it metal? And it was literally
there you go. I like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I've heard Joe Elliott from Def Leppard talk similarly about that when he was a teenager, in England growing up, he always dreamt that he was going to grow up to be this rock star, and that was a name he imagined from the time he was a teenager. Who knows?
Oh, really?
But that's amazing. Now, Tom,
that is pretty cool. And not to interrupt or anything, but it is, especially now, I couldn't imagine having to come up with a name. I mean, especially if you're trying to be like, quote unquote, original. I mean, sure. It would be hard, but yeah, man. I mean, I've had phases over the years where I wish maybe I could have changed it, but I'm kind of far in now, but I don't mind it, honestly. I mean, it looks good in the logo. Took about 10 years to find the right one, but yeah. Yeah.
Now, Kyle, I'll let you know that we all did our homework on Blacklite District. I was familiar, a little more familiar with the band, but whenever we have somebody come on the show, we really research the music and the band. And so we did our homework. And Tom and I, before we came on today, we're just kind of each kind of talking about what we thought about the music. So I'll let you take it, Tom, and then you can ask him whatever questions you want.
Sure. One thing we noticed about your music is like none of the songs sounded the same, which is really cool. And the other thing that I like, and I'm sure live, this has got to be fantastic. Your music has a lot of dynamics, and that's what's missing with a lot of these bands. They don't realize how important dynamics are. And that's one thing I preach to my band live and in the studio, dynamics. Bring it down, bring up highs, lows in the song. I noticed your songs really had a lot of that, and that was impressive to me. I really like that. So who come up with that idea? Is that something you came up with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much the principal songwriter, really the only songwriter. The band has really just been me and friends growing up, throughout the years and this and that. But yeah, I pretty much write everything. Yeah, and I just always, like you said, Tom, I mean, growing up listening to my favorite artists, whether it was an Ozzy or a Guns N' Roses or whatever the case may be, there were just times when those, maybe quiet verses and then impacting into that chorus would just hit me so hard. And to me, it was just kind of a no-brainer to say, man, I got to have some of that, So it was really just chasing that vibe of all the stuff I kind of grew up loving. But I really appreciate that, man, very much.
Well, that's important in music, though. Dynamics, people don't understand. That's like one thing I've preached to my guys. I've been doing this since '84. I've toured with everybody, and I'm the president of a record label now. And I always try to tell my bands that I've signed, dynamics, especially live, you can exhaust the crowd. You bring them up, you bring them down, you beat them with that stuff, and they love it. We got a song called Tonight. The whole crowd is out there chanting it. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we're in front of Metallica or whether we're in front of Molly Hatchet. The same crowd is chanting these songs, and they love the dynamics. And we're a hard rock band, So, but I really took my hat off that. I love that you did that, and it came through on your recordings. What's even more important to me. So I can imagine live. That's probably important because you've got, when you bring the highs, the lows down, people don't understand how important that is. But I see you got that. And kudos to you for that, man.
Hell yeah, man. No, and again, that's such a compliment. Much appreciated. Yeah, and again, to me, it's always just about feeling the vibe, whatever feels right. I used to be in the mindset of, I'm sure like we all were at some point, maybe, trying to chase trends or what's the cool thing to do or what's, what should I do? And I guess to me, it wasn't until after I kind of let all that stuff go and was just like, man, I'm just going to make music that I think is awesome and do little things. And so again, man, love to hear that. That's incredible. And yeah, good stuff, bro.
Because Kyle, the thing is, I would say stick with what you're doing, because the other thing that really stood out to us about your music and your songs is the songwriting is very, very strong. I mean, and I think that partly, like you're saying, when you write music that's from the heart, you're not writing necessarily follow the trends. you create your own trends. You become one of the trends, and it's interesting because, like Tom said, we were talking about the fact that no two songs sound alike. I mean, that's got to come make it that much harder to kind of come up with a set list, or as far as figuring out how to pace the show,
You know, the crazy thing is now, and again, I don't know how far, if any of you guys are beyond checking it out today. We just got word yesterday that we're closing in on 1 billion streams now.
That's
And
amazing.
so,
Wow.
which is incredible. I've been so blessed to have, so many of these viral songs. Especially working with, like, in the YouTube community, a lot of these major animators, Minecraft anime type stuff use a lot of my music. Which again, as we're 900 million plus streams now, confirmed yesterday. And so again, when we've, over the last 5-6 years had, about 15 of these different songs that range from, 10 million up to 80 million views per
Wow.
video, it almost gets to the point where it is hard to pick a set list. So for example, I just got home a couple weeks ago from what's called the Red Carpet Tour. It was our first headlining tour. My audience is really young. It's primarily young teenagers who discover it from YouTube and like I mentioned, the anime stuff. And it's crazy when we go out there and these families that have driven 10 hours on a Tuesday night to be there, and the kids got to go to school the next day. But when you hear the stories from these families and these kids on just how much this music means to them and this song, and so, things that I probably put out in high school as a demo that you would never expect anyone to know about, they find everything, bro. I mean, it blows my mind. So just again, to be in that spot, to be on the other side of that for so many years, to finally now be selling tickets, and not only that, at a premium price and doing such tremendous streaming numbers, I'm just beyond grateful,
Yeah, I'm going to give away some of our trade secrets here in putting together a show like today's episode that we're doing, Kyle, is that typically like a band like Blacklite District, who some other guys may not have heard of, what I'll do is I will go on YouTube, I will find some music, and I'll create a little email to send to everybody and say, okay, this is Blacklite District, check out some of their music, and we all talk about it and comment. And that's how people kind of want to know what we're talking about, and that's the thing is people they got a natural response. And I noticed on YouTube, you're getting these numbers like you're saying. And so I think, your songs are speaking to people.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay, let's say a little over 10 years ago, the first kind of thing I had happen, I had a song called With Me Now, and there's a channel on Sirius XM called Octane.
Wow.
And you guys have heard of that, maybe. They're one of the bigger hard rocks for new hard rock stuff. And, it was #1 on Octane for 6 weeks, stayed in their top 10 for about 6 months. This was about 2013. So kind of right as downloads were fading out, but really before streaming was like the thing. And at the time, it sold about 100,000 downloads. We were doing about 2,500 a week just from the Octane airplay. And at the time, my team was like, man, this is crazy. Like, we're selling all these downloads. I got on tour opening for a band called Saving Abel. They had that song Addicted, then a bunch of others. But so it was kind of cool that I got such a good start. But then I had just some other like negative situations in some of the deals that I was in, and it basically killed all the momentum. So I feel like I've almost had to start from scratch a few times. That first time I'm referring to being kind of the first foray into like the traditional like radio touring rock thing. And it wasn't until that kind of burned to the ground essentially to where it was like, okay, how can I get my music in front of as many people as possible without having, a 6-figure budget to buy radio or this and that. And I kept searching my name, like just Blacklite District on YouTube, and I happened to come across this anime video using that song that was on Octane, and it had 1 million views on it. And I was blown away because it had nothing to do with the rock scene. It was like its own world, just anime clips. And long story short, I reached out. We ended up partnering up. I saw Minecraft videos later, which I would see 10, 20 million views. The guy happened to have heard of me from this first one, and we've done like 500 million views just on YouTube with the Minecraft videos, which essentially turned those young kids into Minecraft viewers, those songs getting stuck in their heads. And now, again, these music getting hundreds of millions of streams across all the platforms.
Hey, let me ask you, Kyle. So you're releasing your music independently on your own, or do you have a record label behind you?
I release everything independently on my own record label, which is called AK19 Entertainment. So yep. again, I'm not on here to sound like a bragging asshole
No,
or anything like that. I promise you.
we want you to tell your story, because it really is amazing that you've done all this from the ground up. And that's why we have artists like you come on, because as much as we love having established artists on the show, we also want to give opportunity for bands that we think are talented and that more people need to know about. Because I got to tell you, when in researching the band and going on YouTube, one thing I see people constantly commenting on is the fact that they feel that your band is so underrated. You know, that they don't feel that you're getting the attention that they feel you should.
Yeah. And again, you know, like I'm sure all of us, again, being at least in some sort of artistic way, whether it's being a musician or this show or whatever that outlet is, you know, I'm sure, you know, just the fact that people feel that way, I think like I'm just grateful for that. Because again, I was on the other side of it so long, playing for two people. Nobody gives a shit about the music. And to all of a sudden feel like a 15-year kind of overnight thing to where all of a sudden these teenagers are, I mean, again, when these parents are like, yeah, we drove 10 hours to get here because he's been begging us to take him and we got to drive back right after the show to get to school tomorrow. I'm like, holy shit, I don't think I would have ever done that. You know what I'm saying? So
and that
I
was
just
obvious.
try my best, and I try to stay as true as I can to the art and just do what I can. And again, the last thing I'll say with that is it's so cool to see a young generation, again, young teenagers coming out loving some rock and roll, man. So to me, that's a win right there.
How are you, Lethal X? You got anything you'd like to ask Kyle?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, doing my homework, I was checking out the videos. I got a vibe of a little bit of Linkin Park, a little bit of Motionless in White. I got a little bit of everything, kind of all in one. But like you said, no song is the same. I actually bought the album, the new one, just so you know, because it actually impacted me that much.
Wow.
Wow.
So, are you doing keyboards in there, or are you doing beats, or how do you put that all together in that? I'm just kind of curious.
So essentially, and by the way, Lethal, thank you very much. Awesome question. And that is so cool to hear you liked the album. Yeah, you know, again, growing up with my favorite artists, it was always guitar, drums, bass, and vocals is a great rock and roll song. So, you know, I try to make that my foundation. As I kind of grew up and, you know, got into my 20s and mid 20s, and I tried to be more open, especially with my age group was always into hip hop and pop, and I was always kind of like, man, I wish that I got to experience like the 80s and the heyday of like the rock and roll being the top of the thing. So I guess in my mind, a little bit of it was like, well, how can I maybe try to incorporate, not go that direction, but maybe incorporate some of those production techniques onto a true rock and roll song. Now, I do end up go a little bit beyond that much of the time, as you've heard, to where there might not be any guitar playing and it is a beat and some synths. So typically I'll find a cool, you know, let's say if it's a 4-chord chorus, all of a sudden I'll try to come up with some sort of random sound on the synthesizer, Lethal, you know what I'm saying? And just find something and just go through different sounds. And I try not to limit to say, okay, I can't do this or that. To me, it's like, if it sounds awesome, that's the way to go. And I'm just not, I try not to limit it to being in the box. So if it ends up sounding more like a hip hop song, that's okay with me because it can still be heavy in its own way, if that makes sense, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you about.
Definitely. I mean,
Go ahead.
I
I'm
was
sorry,
just gonna
Lethal.
say, you know, I think if we think about Ice-T, you know, and the stuff he's done, that's rap and metal, you know, it's basically what it boils down to. So it all works. There's a place for all that stuff. So good job.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this song. Let me see. Fine Right Here. That's off of your album. To me, it's got elements of like progressive rock too, and a little bit of alternative rock.
Yeah, you know, and again, I think that was one that was kind of like, in my mind, old school of just kind of jamming the acoustic and coming up with a little guitar thing. And a lot of times, you know, I'll record like the beginning of that song is like a, like, let's say 3-4 bar acoustic thing before it all comes in rocking. I think I had that little piece in the beginning sitting around for maybe a couple months before. You know, it's like weird. And again, I don't know if everyone's like this, but I'll start on something and then if I'm not really feeling it, I kind of just move on because I don't want to sit there and dwell on it. But then all of a sudden it'll come back to me like a month later and I'll go back in almost with fresh ears and boom. And it almost feels like sometimes the songs write themselves. I don't know if that sounds easy to say, but that's really how it feels. So, but yeah, that's one of my favorites for sure.
And I got to ask you, because again, as great as the songs are, you know, great sounding songs, great rhythm songs, but the videos too are very, what I like to call eye candy. You know, it's like something you'd see on MTV back in the day. Very professionally shot, very professional looking. So I think anybody that goes on YouTube and checks these songs out, not only are they getting great songs, they get great looking video, and it's like, wow, man, it looks cool, it is cool, it sounds great, you know.
Hell yeah, man.
Whole
And you know,
package.
Jason, that's probably again one of the things that just still, I'll say it 1,000 times, like I can't get over the fact that, you know, going through a decade and a half of just working and grinding, as they would say, the fact that I can be in the spot to make music that sounds hopefully awesome
Yeah.
and visuals to go with it and truly give it a bit of the representation, at least a little bit of what I try to see in my head.
Yeah.
It's incredible, man. And again, to see a young generation of kids who are literally picking up guitars and going back, you know, it'll blow my mind when we're at a show and someone will say, man, because of you, as a little 13-year-old kid or something, say, because of you, I started going back and listening to Metallica and discovering all this shit. And I'm like, bro, that is what it's all about, man.
Yeah,
No matter
yeah.
how you get there. And that's keeping the torch going and keeping the rock and roll spirit going, man, generation after generation. So hell yeah, man. Love it.
Yeah, and so Tom, you know, Tom's a performer too himself. So Tom, you have any more questions you'd like to ask Kyle? Because from one performer to another, when you listen to stuff, I'm sure you pick up stuff that we don't, you know, us folks that aren't musicians.
And Tom
Absolutely.
definitely looks really familiar. I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've played all over. I've been on many
Okay.
tours. In fact,
Yeah.
My last singer was Ripper Owens. Him and I did 2 albums together. And
So there you go.
No shit.
Now he's
Okay.
back with
Okay.
KK Priest. Before him, it was Joe Lynn Turner with me.
The
No
drummer in his
shit.
band is Rhino
Wow.
from Manowar.
Yep.
Damn.
Rhino from Manowar is my drummer right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense then. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I play the Metal Hall every year. I play the Metal Hall. I play with Metal Allegiance. I do all that, you know. So,
Right.
but this interview is about you. And one thing I got to say is that, well, a couple of things. I love the fact that your music. I went back to your. I always do this. I go back to find the oldest thing I can find. And what I liked is your music. You can see it's evolving. It's not. And lots of musicians, they get stuck and they don't evolve. And that's one thing that I was like, you're evolving. The other thing is you made the comment about a riff. I do that all the time. I'll bank a riff and then come back. Like my album, Great American Rock. I mean, I spent 18 weeks on the Billboard charts with it. I released it in 2022, and it's still selling, you know, hundreds of albums every month still. I mean, people say physical product's dead. It's not. I sold thousands of albums, and people don't. That's why, you know, I'm trying to help the guys in my band, but banking them riffs and stuff like that and going back, they write themselves. I loved when you said that. That's one of my favorite things when people say, some of these songs, I'll write them in 5 minutes. It's done, beginning to end. It's like the lyrics, everything. And plus, I'm a drummer. I play drums. I play guitar. I play bass. I'm a lead singer. I do everything. When Ripper isn't singing with me, I sing. Now I just brought in another guy to sing with me too. But so I know exactly what you're saying. But the big comment I want to say is that the music has evolved, and that keeps you relevant. And I can see, and it's evolving on its own. I can tell just what, and you're probably evolving as a player. Am I correct in this?
100%, you know, and that was something that kind of from day one was a thing, is that I didn't want to get, like you mentioning, you know, some of these acts that it's the same album after album, really. I just didn't want to do that, you know. Yeah, it's really both, Tom. It's evolving naturally, but it's also evolving because I want to, and I want to be open. Like I said a little bit ago about just trying to be open to listening to even other kinds of music, or you know, if it's, you know, when I was a teenager, you couldn't have got me to listen to anything but rock and metal, you know, and now I feel like I can almost find the heaviness even in some pop songs if you listen right on some of those minor melodies. So to me, it's just expanded my view on so much of this stuff. And yeah, man, I really appreciate that. And so cool to hear, man. And you're right about the CDs. I stopped putting my albums on CDs for just a couple years. And now, bro, going out to these shows and selling, you know, 50 a night sometimes. Damn. Absolutely.
Here's something I'm going to tell you about the CD industry that a lot of people don't know. I can tell you this because I spoke to them personally. Ford Motor Company next year is putting CD players back in all their cars.
No
that's
shit.
the music business. And if Ford does it, everybody's going to follow suit. I spoke to the people at Ford. They spoke to our manufacturers. They said, we are putting in CDs in all our new cars next year, starting in 2025. That's going to be huge for people like you and I. And
wow.
People say, oh, physical products dead. It's not. It's not.
Right.
And you're right. Selling 50, 100 CDs at your shows, it's fantastic. That's where I sell most of my CDs. Well, I sell them through my distribution company too, but I got lucky. You know, I'm in with Walmart, Target, Barnes and Nobles, everybody. So Tower
Right.
Records. Still,
And
you
you know,
got
as I'm sure you know, Tom, like, and I think again, it doesn't work for everybody. Not every band is going to go out and move units, but you know, even if it's a niche fan base, if you can find that niche, they will be there to buy your shit, man. You know this. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I don't think there's a show went by that I haven't done at least 2,000 in merch between T-shirts, you know, CDs, cup holders, I sell everything, you know, and
Yeah.
the people are always buying the stuff, and I'm always recycling, putting new stuff out there. So that's important too. So how did your tour go? I see you did like a 12-city tour.
Yeah, we did 12 dates. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I was mentioning, the whole red carpet tour. It was our first time doing it. So every night was the same. It was doors open at 5 p.m. We went on stage at 6 p.m., did about 75 minutes till 7:15. And then 7:30 till about 10 o'clock was the meet and greet. We would literally have like a red carpet, the whole like private. So people would walk up, go through the merch, and then they would come in and we would make kind of an enclosure where they would come in and meet me afterward, you know, spend 5 minutes back there, sign the stuff. Again, it was our first time doing that. We basically have spent a decade in the clubs and whatnot, but we basically went back to the drawing board and rented American Legion halls
Wow,
in
wow.
order to do the show because it was so hard for us to find venues that would do all ages. And not only that, then to do the 6 p.m. showtime. And we wanted to cater again, because last year, finding out so many of these families would drive in. Again, we're trying to super serve the fans essentially.
Wow.
So yeah, it was incredible, man. The fact again that I've played for 3 people for so long to now actually have lines out the door. And again, to be selling tickets, you know, $40, $50 a piece, is just something I could have never dreamed of. So I'm just, yeah, it was incredible, man. We're going to be announcing more dates in the next week or two, actually. So.
And so Kyle, the new album is called You Can Do Better. You want to talk at all about the new album? Tell people how they can get a hold of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's out there on all the usual spots, I guess you could say, Spotify, all the streaming platforms. Physical is available if you're into that. That is a new album. Yeah, again, I think I've done like 7 or 8 albums now. Again, it's just been such a journey, and I feel blessed to be able to play music, and the fact that I get to spend time, come on, chat with cool guys like you. Of course, shout out to Jamie, who you know, introduced us all. And yeah, man, I love it, and I would love, like you said up front, you know, hope maybe I can come back and
Anytime,
you know,
anytime.
update the story as we
We
go.
have just touched the surface, and in fact, we're getting ready to run out of time. Before we do, though, I think this is a great place to end the show. Lethal X, you said you were so taken aback by the music that it caused you to go out and buy the album. Can you sum up, like, give us a brief review of what you think of the album? You haven't had a chance to hear it yet?
I don't know. It's like Tom was saying, it's extremely dynamic. It's got a lot of stuff going on in it. It's not just this repetitive like riff constantly going over and over and over and over. There's like these ups and downs. It's something that's a little bit fresh because, like I said, I know bands that I mentioned before, and I listen to all kinds of music. I listen to really heavy stuff, and then I can go all the way back to the mellow stuff. There's just something about the way this is put together that just caught me.
Yeah.
I guess it was kind of like that little bit of a groove. And yeah, there is a little bit of hip hop rap style in there, a little bit here and there, it feels like, but it's just a combination of all that. I think that just hooked me.
It's got elements of everything. That's what I dug about it, and I think it really your songwriting really shines, you know, because of that. And I think like the one thing we're telling Jamie before you came on, Kyle, is one thing to say about this band is you cannot pigeonhole this band, and I think that is what why people have had this reaction to your music.
Thank you, man. Yeah, you know, we always try to figure out when people say, well, who does it sound like? It's like, we can never pick like one person. Say, well, it's like this. And we want to, like, I'm trying to, but yeah,
I don't think you should try, because you have your own sound, which is unique. You know, a lot of bands, they have that problem. Oh, they're trying to be the next Metallica. No, you got your own unique sound. And that's really, I think, what I dug about it. In fact, the last thing I will say before you wrap it up for today is that I think and listening to your music, I could not even really tell what your influences are, because they're all over the place, which that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know what's funny is that it all starts with a 12-year-old in the basement ripping off Black Sabbath songs. You know what I'm saying? So, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Hell yeah. Man, you guys are awesome, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Seriously.
Yeah.
Lethal X, Tom, Jason, seriously, guys. Yeah, again, all I can say is thank you. Again, I hope I get to come back and you know, hopefully again, I got some really
You don't
cool
have to hope.
milestones.
You're welcome
Miles-
back. You got an open invitation anytime. You just let Jamie know to reach out to me and we'll set it up.
Okay, awesome, man. I got some cool milestones coming up, and yeah, man, great to meet all you guys, and let's do it again.
Okay, thank you,
Absolutely. Good
Kyle.
luck,
And we'll
man.
let you know when this goes up. Take care, my friend.
For sure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Okay, Lethal X,
Good one.
Kyle, over now.
Hey,
This was a great
later, guys.
episode. Hey, bye-bye.
Later.